So Gominda asked me to talk about professionalism and the OSCE and workplace-based assessment. What are you doing now around this? What are you doing with professionalism in an OSCE? Are you including it at all?
Yes, John, at undergraduate level, we have certain OSCE stations and also portfolios to assess professionalism.
Okay, so I think there were in our world when we introduced this, there were sort of like 3 steps to this process. The first is we had a definition, or we created a definition of professionalism, and that's the first step in creating or using professionalism, either as part of an OSCE or as part of workplace-based assessment. So the first step was the definition. Once there was a definition, we could decide which aspects of professionalism could be assessed by the method. So there might be some aspects of professionalism that don't make sense in an OSCE or in workplace-based assessment, so we didn't focus on those. We focused on those that could be used in that. And once we did that, we just trained the faculty. That was sort of our strategy. The way we did this mostly was that we would get the faculty together for a brief workshop, hour and a half, and we would do basically frame of reference training. So what we would do is we would show them a video of a trainee interacting with a patient. We would ask them to rate the performance and professionalism quietly to themselves without talking to anybody else. Then we would ask them to announce one by one what their evaluations were and why. We'd have a conversation with the group, and then we would go back and do it all over again. So we would do it a couple of 3 times. So by the end of this period, it's not that the faculty was going to agree, but they would have been closer together, and they at least would have had a better understanding of what each other meant by professionalism. So the 3 steps for introducing this, both in the OSCE and in workplace-based assessment, were the same: definition, what suits the method, and then training faculty. And the best way to train them, I think, is to get them to actually watch a performance and then discuss what their evaluations were. And one of the first things that happens with this is that there's a conversation about what the definition is when there's disagreements among the faculty as they do their training. And this allows them to refine that definition to some degree. So that really is all that I know, or what we did, at least in terms of introducing professionalism here. And I'm sure you must be doing something similar in your setting.
Any questions on that?
So can you elaborate on what you define, what you mean by definition or defining? Okay, can you give an example of a station?
Yes. So I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but excuse me. In the day, there were published definitions of professionalism. And for what it's worth, for a different purpose a few weeks ago, I did a Google search on definitions of professionalism in medicine, and I found more than 10 million hits. So one of the things that happens is that the definitions vary widely. There's considerable variability. So coming up, and it varies by context, and all of that should happen because professionalism is culturally bound in a lot of ways. So making sure that you have a definition is the first step. I think that there's considerable overlap in terms of looking at OSCEs, for example. There's considerable overlap between communication skills and professionalism. But there are aspects of professionalism that can be assessed in those settings. The challenge is that if you decide on each OSCE what professionalism means in this context, I think you end up spending a lot of time and not getting a lot of return for that effort. I think you're much better having the faculty, getting the faculty together and doing frame of reference training with them than you are trying to define what professionalism means in each context, because I think that it's really hard to predict in advance how professionalism will present with any particular patient. And I think at the end of the day, relying on the faculty to make judgments about that might be the best you can do.
Thank you, John.
Sure. Anything else?
I'm Shan Silva again.
Yeah.
I have a question. You said that you have to train faculty about the frame of reference. I mean, you say frame of reference training is important. So the way that people have approached to professionalism and the importance of professionalism varies. There are people who take it lightheartedly and people who take it in a very serious note as well. How now, when you select the faculty, how do you make the selections? Is that an ad hoc way?
Boy, if I knew the answer to that question, I'd be a rich man at this point. How to motivate faculty to engage in assessment is a huge challenge. And I unfortunately don't have any real tremendous insights in this. I do know that, as you said, picking faculty, if you have that luxury, picking faculty is really a key part of this. I know many medical schools and postgraduate training programs end up developing a core group of faculty who have an interest in assessment and in professionalism in particular, but in all the aspects of assessment, and relying on them to do a large share of the assessment process for precisely the reasons you indicated. There are many, many faculty who don't take it particularly seriously. And when they don't take it seriously, not only does it send a bad message to students, but it also has a really adverse effect on assessment and modeling of the profession going forward. So I think, as I said, I wish I had an answer to that question. And if any tips or tricks that you use, please share them broadly, because it really is a conundrum for everybody everywhere.
Okay, John, then we have come to an end, and let me thank you profusely for accepting this invitation on short notice, despite your very busy schedule, and giving us a wonderful session. And also may I thank all the participants who were very interactive, and perhaps they have come with a purpose to grill you, and I'm sure they got what they wanted. So thank you very much. The participation was fantastic. In fact, at one point there was, I think, more than 62. There were 62 participants. But of course, here we are approaching almost midnight. So the numbers dwindled as we went by, but that's understood. But we have recorded this, so we will share the recording so that those who could not stay right throughout can benefit, and also those who could not attend also could benefit. So thank you very much for this very insightful session. And on behalf of the College of Medical Educationists, I wish to thank Dr. John Norcini as well as the participants, and we'll meet in another session in time to come. And also on a personal note, wish you a safe trip tomorrow. I hope we did not tire you too much or
Nope,
kept
you're good.
you away from your preparations for the travel. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll close the session.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.